Hi, this is Donna from Clever Crafting. Thank you so much for joining me today. So we're doing something a little bit different today. We're actually going to paint and we're going to make a lovely watercolor background for our card, and we're doing it on plain cardstock. So this is a standard 250 GSM cardstock. I'm just removing a little bit of hair there. I don't know how that got into my gesso. I'm coating it with this gesso. So gesso is basically a primer that we put down so it'll act a little bit like watercolor paper. So you can obviously do this technique on watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is way more expensive than standard cardstock. This is just a standard 250 GSM cardstock. And you can see that what I'm doing is I'm using that little paint scraper, which I picked up for Bunnings for like $1.50. It was cheap. And I am using it to scrape a thin layer of gesso over my cardstock. So I'm just wiping the excess in there. I use hardly any of this. So as far as cost goes, the gesso is, you can get for like 10, 12 bucks or whatever. And to coat these is just cheap. So you can see that I've showed you there's white gesso, black gesso, and that last one was a clear gesso. All right, so I'm just making that nice and neat and removing it, and I'm going to put that aside to dry. Now you can dry it with a heat gun if you want to. Gesso doesn't take very long to dry. All right, so I've cleaned up my desk and I've started again. You can see that I just showed you quickly the watercolor palette. You can do this with watercolor, but I am choosing to do it with my Distress Oxides. And I started by putting a line of water down the center of my cardstock there. And this means that when I'm painting on there and I'm dripping this Distress Oxide ink down, it's only going to stay in that center track where that water was. So just cleaning off my brush, and now I'm going to go in with some worn lipstick, and I'm going to do that on the outer edge. So this is more than just, I guess, a plain watercolor look, because it's like a dripped watercolor look. I want the dripped look. It's really what I'm after. I just love it. I think it looks fab. So you can see that I'm doing the same there, except what I'm doing is I just sprayed the top of that, and you can see that beautiful big drip line going down the side of the card. So now I'm just putting some water on the other side. Obviously, I didn't clean my brush off very well. Well, I didn't at all, actually, because I was going to be putting some more worn lipstick on the other side. And this time I'm squeezing some excess water out of my water brush, so it's giving me the drip effect. I'm a little bit impatient, so I have got my heat gun so I can dry some of that oxide up. You don't need to. You can let it dry naturally, but I didn't want to. Now I've actually gone back to normal speed here, and I just wanted to show you that you can see that drip beautifully on the worn lipstick, but I wasn't really happy with the look of the cracked pistachio part. So I'm literally just putting more cracked pistachio on it, and I'm squeezing water out of my brush again so I can get that nice drip look on the cracked pistachio as well. There we go. There's that nice big drip going down the page. So with the Distress Oxides, you can in actual fact just do layer over layer over layer. It's really quite easy, and it just keeps reactivating in the with the water. So you'll see that every so often I'm just dropping that in my that little cloth there, and that's just to clear up some of the stuff at the bottom, just so it's not pooling there. So now I've just put some more water, you can see, between the worn lipstick and the cracked pistachio, and this is mustard seed that I'm putting in there. Now that's way too bright for what I want. So one of the best things about this is that because it's water reactive, you can actually just add more water and it'll lighten it up. So it's fab. You can just keep doing that. So you can see here once again I'm just adding the drips. So this was actually a class that we did. For any of you that don't know, we do online classes every Friday. And if you want to see other examples of this, a lot of the students would have posted their projects. So we did greeting cards as well as scrapbook pages, and you'll see them over on our Facebook page, and I'll put the link below. So now what I felt is that this was still too bright, so I wanted to tone it down a little bit. So what I'm doing is, I didn't clean my brush out properly first. I'm literally just putting water over a stencil in those areas, and I'm mopping it up, because I can remove a bit of color this way, which is so fantastic. I will say this isn't quite as clear as I would have liked, although it is a beautiful, subtle textured back with going through the stencil. But I found after I did it here on video that if you use a wet cloth and just dab it on, it does this much better. It's a much better effect. But you will be able to see that's a little bit blotchy there, but you will be able to see from here. I've slowed this down again now. It's a little bit tricky to see on camera, but you will be able to see in the photos, and you can see there just that really light stenciling in the background, and it just gives it such a beautiful texture. I'm really happy with the result. Okay, so now I'm going to use this little heart cutout, which is a cut file that came in the January kit, and I am just going to grab my pencil and I'm going to draw inside the hearts here. Now, I did this the hard way. I drew inside. I positioned my hearts where I wanted them and drew around and then hand cut them out like this. Really, what I could have done is, because in the kit, the inside parts of those hearts actually come in the kit in white as well. And I could have used temporary tape and stuck them in place before I painted. And then I wouldn't have had to cut out, because I would have, been painting the hearts at the same time as I was painting the background. That whole comment there will make a lot more sense when we get to the end of the video. But just grab a knife and I'm just cutting out the hearts you can see there. I'm not going to make you watch me do all of that. I've chopped it out. So also off camera, I made a nice black frame that will frame the outside of my card there, and you can see that I've cut that down. I've used my metric rectangles, and this is the metric rectangle number 3 that I've used for that one. We can put that aside and use it as a frame for another project, or typically it'll get wrecked on my desk and I'll end up throwing it away, but whatever. So the thoughts there. This is the hearts. I really wanted them to stand out, so I've just got a black alcohol marker and I just colored them in black, nice and easy. Some double-sided tape on the back of my mat of my feature. That just looks so pretty, doesn't it? Well, I think it looks pretty. I'm lining that up, just releasing the backing of the sticky on 2 corners to make it nice and easy to line up, and then moving the rest of the release paper. Lovely. And then I'm going to pop some glue on the back of that and stick it on the front of my card. Once again, you don't need a lot of glue, but I'm just using a little bit around the edges and inside. So it was this point that I realized, oh no, I forgot to stamp my greeting on there. So I've taken from this month's stamp and die set, the Sweethearts Stamp and Die Set, the With Love, and I have just stamped that on with some VersaFine black ink. And because it was wet, I decided last minute that I would emboss it with some clear embossing powder, because the last thing I want to do right now is smudge it over all of that beautiful watercolor work. So just a little bit with my heat gun over that, and it's nice and shiny, and we're just going to put it together. So this is one of the pieces of ephemera, once again, that was in the kit, but you can use any sorts of ephemera. It doesn't have to be these particular ones, of course. Anything that you may want to cut out of patterned paper yourself. Just going to stick the hearts in place. So this is slightly different, because in class we actually use different patterned papers in all of these hearts, whereas this time I'm actually using the backing paper that we've made. So I'm just going to grab some double-sided foam tape, because it's fast, and I'm sticking that on the back of each one of those hearts, and this will prop them up a little bit, so it gives a little bit of dimension to our card, which I love. I'm just going to add a little bit of cotton, because I just love this whole cotton thing, coloring. I love it. I love it as the added texture on my cards, and I'm putting it on my scrapbook pages as well. So just gonna pop a little butterfly on top of that. I decided that it could use a little bit of bling, and there we are. There's our card. How beautiful is that? And so much fun, like so much fun. All right, my photos aren't the greatest tonight. Sorry about that, guys. Had a few camera issues, but still you can see this is a close-up, so you get to see a little bit of that heart stenciling. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed this process video today, and that you give it a whirl. I'll put all the links below, and as normal, I hope you all stay safe and happy crafting.